In the world of the ultra-wealthy, money is a loud, vulgar tool. It can buy you a seat at the table, a penthouse in Mayfair, or a Ferrari with a simple swipe of a black card. But at 24 Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré, your money is remarkably powerless. See, in every other corner of the globe, the customer is king. It's a simple transaction. But at Hermes, the power dynamic is inverted. You don't just buy a Birkin, you are selected to own one. The ultimate flex of the 1% isn't having the capital to purchase, it's having the permission to spend. Welcome to the most sophisticated psychological game in the history of retail. Think about the life of a billionaire for a second. This is someone who doesn't wait for reservations, they don't wait in lines. They spend their entire lives hearing the word yes before they've even finished asking the question. Their world is designed to be frictionless. But then, they walk through those heavy glass doors at Hermes, and suddenly, the friction is the only thing they can feel. Why does a person who dictates the fate of global markets tolerate being told no by a retail clerk making an hourly wage? It feels like a glitch in the matrix, right? But it's actually a perfectly calibrated psychological trap called the Veblen effect. In a normal world, the one you and I live in economics is simple. If the price of milk goes up, we buy less milk. But in the upside-down world of ultra-luxury, the rules are inverted. For a Veblen good, the price tag isn't just about the cost of the leather. It's a measurement of exclusivity. The higher the price, and more importantly, the higher the barrier to entry, the more the demand skyrocket. If everyone could have it, they wouldn't want it. But Hermes took this theory and turned it into a weapon. They realized that for the person who has everything, the only thing left to desire is the one thing they can't have. Rejection is the ultimate aphrodisiac for the ego. When a sales associate looks a titan of industry in the eye and says, "I'm sorry, we have no leather offers today," they aren't actually talking about inventory. They know exactly what's in the back. What they're doing is stripping that person of their power. In that moment, the billionaire isn't a boss, or a leader, or a giant of commerce. They're petitioners. They're a student waiting for a grade. This rejection triggers a primal, almost desperate need for validation. It's that high school cool table energy, but with much higher stakes. Most brands spend millions of dollars trying to be accessible and customer friendly. Hermes does the opposite. They build a wall of no, and they watch as the most powerful people on earth try to climb over it. You see, the brand has figured out the ultimate secret of the human ego. We don't value what we can afford. We value what we are allowed to possess. In this sterile, marble-floored room, the customer is no longer the king. The brand is the dictator. The sales associate is the gatekeeper. And the more they push you away, the more you find yourself leaning in, desperate to prove you're worthy of the yes that money alone can't buy. It's not about the bag. It's about surviving the rejection. Think about it. You've got $10,000 burning a hole in your pocket, and you walk into a store to buy a bag. In any normal reality, that's the end of the story. You hand over the cash, they hand you the box. Done. But at Hermes, that $10,000 isn't the price. It's just the ante to sit at the table. To actually get to the bag, you have to cross a bridge. And that bridge is paved with things you probably don't want and definitely don't need. This is the Prespend, the unwritten tax of high luxury, a psychological labyrinth. To be considered worthy of a Hermes Birkin bag or a Hermes Kelly bag, you have to build what they call a profile. Sounds harmless? It's not. It's just a polished way of saying, prove you're willing to play. So you start small, a silk scarf, maybe some sandals, nothing crazy. Then the pressure creeps in. Suddenly, you're staring at an $800 dog bowl thinking, maybe this shows commitment. Then it's porcelain plates. Then a $4,000 leather saddle. Even if the closest you've been to a horse is a Netflix documentary. At that point, you're not shopping anymore. You're auditioning. And your sales associate, they're not just helping you find your size. They're the gatekeeper, the judge, the one person standing between you and the thing you came for. Officially, this is about brand loyalty. In reality, it's a quiet test. How far are you willing to go before you get what you want? This is where it gets uncomfortable. There's no contract, no receipt that says you're getting closer, no progress bar telling you you're 80% there. You're spending real money on a maybe. And this isn't just internet folklore. In 2024, shoppers took Hermes to federal court, alleging that access to a Birkin was effectively tied to buying other Hermes products first, turning the process into what they described as a hidden luxury lottery. Hermès denied that claim and argued that customers do not need prior purchase history to buy a Birkin. In 2025, a judge dismissed the case, saying the plaintiffs had not shown an antitrust violation. But the fact that this system made it all the way to federal court tells you something. The game isn't imaginary, it's powerful. Because at Hermès, the bag is never just a bag, it's access. And access is where the real power lives. So you keep going. Pillows, blankets, beach towels you didn't plan to buy. All on the hope that one day your SA leans in, lowers their voice, and asks that question. Are you looking for something special today? Until then, you're just moving through the labyrinth, spending your way toward a door that may or may not open. Let's step back for a second. How does a rational, high-functioning person justify this? How do you explain dropping tens of thousands on things you didn't even want, just for the chance to spend more on a handbag? In any normal context, it sounds like a bad decision. But here's where the genius kicks in. They stop calling it a purse and start calling it an asset. The moment you label it an alternative investment, everything shifts. The guilt fades. You're no longer shopping, you're diversifying. It sounds smart, calculated, and the wild part? The resale market backs it up. If you manage to walk out of a boutique with a Hermes Birkin bag for around $12,000, you could resell it for 2 or 3 times that, sometimes immediately. It starts to feel less like fashion, more like a financial instrument you can carry. People even talk about a Birkin index with a straight face. By keeping supply painfully low, Hermès hasn't just built demand, they've built belief. A belief that a specific leather bag can rival traditional assets like the S&P 500 or even gold. And in an unpredictable world, that idea is comforting. People want something tangible, something rare, something that feels stable. But here's the reality. You're not really investing if the only way to access the asset is by overspending on everything else first. That's not strategy. That's the system working exactly as designed. Yes, the bag might resell for more, but that value only exists because the brand controls who gets in and who stays out. They control supply. They control access. They control the story. What you're holding isn't just a luxury item. It's a product shaped by scarcity and social pressure, turned into something that feels far more valuable than it actually is. It's a clean illusion, and as long as people keep believing in it, the game holds. Just don't confuse playing the game with beating it. The climax of this whole multi-year saga doesn't happen under the bright lights of an auction house or on a red carpet. It happens in total, clinical silence. You're led into a quiet, wood-paneled VIP room. The kind of room that feels like a confession booth or a high-stakes closing meeting. There's no music. There's just the smell of expensive leather and the weight of your own expectation. When that iconic orange box is finally placed on the table, something strange happens to the human brain. You aren't looking at the stitching. You aren't checking the grain of the leather or the weight of the hardware. The primary emotion isn't "I love this bag." The primary emotion is relief. It's a massive soul-level exhale. In that moment, the feeling is, I have been chosen. Think about how twisted that is. This is a customer who has spent years being subtly ignored, flat out rejected, and essentially forced to buy furniture and dog leashes they didn't even want. And yet, when the sales associate finally grants them the privilege of handing over another $15,000, the customer doesn't feel exploited. They feel victorious. They look at the person who spent months gatekeeping their happiness and they say, thank you. They aren't just paying for a product, they're paying for the end of the anxiety. They're paying for the validation that they are, finally, one of them. If you've learned anything by now, it's that Hermès isn't actually in the business of manufacturing handbags. They're in the business of manufacturing status. They don't sell leather. They sell the intoxicating high of being on the right side of the velvet rope. They've mastered the art of gatekeeping desire. By making the process painful, they've made the prize priceless. Because at the end of the day, the Birkin or the Kelly on your arm, it isn't just a bag, it's a receipt. It's a physical piece of proof that you played their game, you paid the toll, you endured the rejection, and you survived. In the world of the ultra luxury, the bag is just the trophy for a race you didn't even realize you were running.